Paradise, Texas, is a community of about 500 people. It is the kind of isolated, quiet town where residents routinely leave their doors unlocked because the threat of violent crime feels entirely foreign. The evening of November 30, 2022, was a completely normal Wednesday. 7-year-old Athena Strand was at home with her stepmother. After a minor disagreement, she walked out the front door. At first, her family assumed she was just hiding in the yard, but as 10 minutes stretched into a full hour, the quiet property was filled with the sound of her name being called out. Nothing answered. When a child goes missing, there is usually a physical trace left behind. A neighbor spots a strange car, or someone hears a shout. Here, there was absolute silence. A young girl simply evaporated into a vacuum. By nightfall, the authorities arrived, overwhelming the quiet rural roads with flashing lights and sirens. Over 200 local volunteers fanned out on foot to comb through the dense brush, while law enforcement helicopters scanned the sprawling fields and tree lines from above. Hundreds of people kept their flashlights pointed at the dirt and the creek beds, looking for a child who had wandered into the woods. They were looking past a driver who had entered the driveway in plain sight and left in a marked delivery vehicle. Despite the massive deployment of physical manpower, those traditional ground search methods were failing. Athena wasn't lost in the wild. While volunteers maintained the ground search, detectives turned their attention to data. They isolated the precise window of time she vanished and matched it against neighborhood traffic patterns. They noticed a white delivery van had pulled up to the property at approximately 5:40 p.m. This shows the type of locator tracking interface police pulled to retrace the truck's route. By logging these GPS pings, they reconstructed the vehicle's exact path, matching its precise stops to the timeline of the disappearance. The man behind the wheel was a driver named Tanner Lynn Horner. The server logs revealed an unexplained delay during his stop at the Strand house. On December 2nd, investigators brought him in for questioning. Detectives confronted Horner with the exact seconds the GPS placed him in the driveway. Facing the objective proof of the vehicle logs, his initial story collapsed. He admitted the truth because the digital evidence left him no room to lie. Horner admitted that as he was reversing his delivery van after dropping off a package, he struck young Athena. It was a brutal mistake, but it wasn't fatal. She survived the impact. She was awake, and she even managed to tell him her name. Horner had a phone in his hand. He could dial 911, call an ambulance, and face the consequences of a traffic accident. Instead, he made a conscious choice to protect himself at her expense. He grabbed the injured 7-year-old, locked her in the back of his van, and ended her life inside the cargo hold. He then drove nearly 10 miles to the banks of the Trinity River to dispose of her body. This was the result of a cowardly split-second calculation to hide a mistake, prioritizing personal safety over the life of a conscious 7-year-old child. Authorities recovered Athena from the riverbank, and Horner was swiftly charged with capital murder. Here is a standard Amber Alert notification on a smartphone. As investigators mapped the rapid timeline of the murder, they realized the rigid criteria required to send these alerts had cost them critical time. There is a bureaucratic delay, a gap of lost time between the moment a parent realizes their child is gone and the moment local police compile enough verified details to satisfy state requirements for a public broadcast. Locking up a killer closes the case, but the timeline exposed a lethal flaw in the missing child protocol. The notification window remained dangerously slow. Athena's mother moved from grief into direct advocacy, focusing her attention on the state legislature. She pushed for new legislation, now known as Athena's Law. It allows local law enforcement to bypass the strict state-level Amber Alert criteria, authorizing them to trigger an immediate, localized alert the second a child is reported missing. It took less than 10 minutes for a routine delivery to claim her life, but the legal framework built in her name will remain permanently ingrained in state law. Athena Strand was robbed of her future, but her tragedy forced an entire state to close the gap on lost time.